I never thought I'd be standing outside my childhood home on what should have been one of the happiest days of my father's life, feeling like an intruder. But here I was, Emma Carter, 32, CEO of New Age Tech Solutions, clutching my briefcase and trying to gather the courage to walk through that familiar oak door. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses drifted through the windows. Dad's retirement party was in full swing, and I wasn't invited. After 15 years of running Carter Manufacturing, my father's automotive parts company, he was finally stepping down. The invitation had gone out to everyone except me, his own daughter. I checked my reflection in the car window one last time. My dark hair was perfectly styled, my navy business suit pristine. I looked every bit the successful executive I'd become, despite my family's predictions of failure when I left the business 3 years ago to start my own tech company. "You'll crash and burn," Dad had said, his face red with anger. "You're abandoning your heritage, everything I built for you." What he never understood was that I was trying to save that heritage, not destroy it. But today wasn't about the past. It was about the truth. Taking a deep breath, I walked up the familiar pathway lined with Mom's beloved rose bushes. She'd passed away 5 years ago, and I couldn't help but think how different things might be if she were still here. Mom had always been the bridge between Dad's old-school business mentality and my modern ideas. I didn't knock. This had been my home for 25 years, and despite everything, I still had a key. The door opened silently, and I stepped into the foyer. The house was packed with familiar faces, employees, business partners, family friends. They all turned to stare as I entered, conversations dying mid-sentence. My younger brother Kevin spotted me first. He was standing near the makeshift bar, wearing the Carter Manufacturing polo shirt that marked him as the heir apparent. His face darkened. "Emma, what are you doing here?" Before I could respond, Dad emerged from his study. He'd aged in the 3 years since I left, his hair more gray than black now, new lines etched around his eyes. For a moment, I saw a flash of something in his expression, pain, regret. But it quickly hardened into anger. "Keep your distance," he shouted, pointing at me accusingly. "Your startup company bankrupted my business. How dare you show up here?" The room fell silent. Dozens of eyes focused on me, most filled with judgment. They'd all heard the story, how my betrayal had supposedly caused Carter Manufacturing to lose its biggest contracts, how my new company had stolen their clients, how I'd abandoned my family for personal gain. I smiled calmly, though my heart was racing. "Hello, Dad. I think it's time everyone knew the truth." I set my briefcase on the nearest table and pulled out my laptop. Kevin stepped forward, his face flushed. "Get out, Emma. You've done enough damage." "Have I?" I asked, opening the computer. "Or have you and Dad done the damage yourselves?" My father's face paled slightly. He knew what I had. What I discovered 3 years ago that had driven me to leave and start my own company. "This is my retirement party," he said, his voice lower now but still hard. "You have no right to be here." "I have every right," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Because everything that's happened, the company's struggles, the lost contracts, the bankruptcy filing you've been trying to hide from everyone here, it's not because of my success. It's because of your failures." A murmur went through the crowd. "Listen, everyone," I said, raising my voice slightly. 3 years ago, I discovered something while working as Carter Manufacturing's financial director, something that made me realize I couldn't stay. "Emma, don't," Kevin warned, but I could see the fear in his eyes. I connected my laptop to the large TV mounted on the living room wall. For 15 years, Dad and Kevin have been running this company based on outdated methods and questionable practices. They've been cooking the books, hiding losses, and making deals that line their own pockets while running the company into the ground. The room erupted in whispers. Dad stepped forward, his face red. "You're lying." "Am I?" I pulled up the first spreadsheet. These are the real financial records from 2020. Notice anything strange about the materials procurement costs? They're inflated by 40% above market rate. Want to know why? Because Dad and Kevin were buying from shell companies they secretly owned, pocketing the difference. Kevin lunged for my laptop, but I stepped aside. And here's where it gets interesting. When I confronted them about it, they offered to cut me in on the deal. That's why I left. That's why I started New Age Tech Solutions, not to compete with Carter Manufacturing, but to build something honest. The documents continued to scroll across the screen: fake invoices, hidden accounts, falsified quality control reports. Years of deception laid bare before the very people they'd been hiding it from. Your company didn't bankrupt Carter Manufacturing, Dad, I said, my voice softening. Your choices did. And now everyone knows. The silence in the room was deafening. I could see the shock on people's faces as they processed what they were seeing. Many of them had worked for Carter Manufacturing for decades, trusted my father with their livelihoods. Dad slumped into a chair, suddenly looking every bit his 65 years. Kevin stood frozen, his face ashen. The empire of lies they built was crumbling around them. But here's the thing, I continued, closing my laptop. I'm not here to destroy what's left of the company. I'm here to save it. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a folder. Inside this folder is a proposal. New H-Tech Solutions will buy Carter Manufacturing, but not to dismantle it. We'll modernize it, make it legitimate again, save the jobs of every honest employee in this room. I placed the folder on the table next to Dad. The choice is yours. Sign the agreement, let me fix what you broke, or watch the company collapse under the weight of your decisions when these documents reach the SEC. Dad stared at the folder for a long moment, then looked up at me. For the first time in years, I saw something different in his eyes. Not anger or disappointment, but recognition. Recognition of the strong, principled businesswoman I'd become, so different from the pliable daughter he tried to mold me into. You planned this, he said quietly. You knew about the bankruptcy filing. I nodded. I've been watching, waiting for the right moment. Today seemed appropriate. Your retirement party. A chance for a fresh start. Kevin stepped forward, his face twisted with rage. You can't do this. The company is mine, Dad promised. The company won't be anyone's if we don't act now, I replied calmly. The creditors are circling, Kevin. You know that. This is the only way to save what's left. One of the board members, Mr. Harrison, cleared his throat. James, he said, addressing my father, is what she's showing us true. Have you been deceiving us all these years? Dad's shoulders sagged. The fight seemed to drain out of him as he reached for the folder. Yes, he said quietly, it's all true. The room erupted in chaos. Angry voices, accusations, demands for explanations. But I stayed focused on my father as he opened the folder and read through the agreement. You're offering fair market value, he said, surprise evident in his voice. Even with everything you know, you're not trying to steal it. I know you, Dad, I replied softly. I never was. That's what you never understood. He picked up the pen I placed beside the folder. His hand trembled slightly as he signed his name on the dotted line. Kevin stormed out of the room, slamming the front door behind him. As the documents were signed and witnessed, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. 3 years of watching, waiting, and building my own success had led to this moment. I'd finally done what I set out to do: save the company, expose the truth, and maybe, just maybe, earn my father's respect in the process. The party broke up quickly after that, guests leaving in small groups, talking in hushed voices about what they'd witnessed. Soon, only Dad and I remained in the living room. Your mother would be proud, he said finally, staring into his glass of scotch. She always said you had her moral compass. She tried to warn you, I replied, about the shortcuts, the deceptions. She knew it would catch up eventually. Yes, she did. He looked up at me, his eyes tired but clear. What happens now? Now, I said, gathering my things, I start the work of rebuilding what you nearly destroyed. It won't be easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. I walked to the door, then paused. The retirement party didn't go quite as planned. But in a way, you are retiring, just not the way you expected. As I drove home that night, I thought about the long road ahead. Transforming Carter Manufacturing would be a challenge, but I was ready for it. Sometimes the hardest part of loving your family is holding them accountable for their actions. Today, I'd done both. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. You'll regret this. I smiled, thinking of the documents safely stored in multiple locations. He still didn't understand. This wasn't about revenge or regret. It was about doing what was right, no matter the cost. The sun was setting as I pulled into my driveway, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now I had accomplished what I'd set out to do. Sometimes showing up uninvited is the only way to crash a party built on lies. The morning after my father's retirement party, I arrived early at Carter Manufacturing's headquarters. The building hadn't changed much in the 3 years since I'd left. Same faded red brick exterior, same worn company sign, same cracked parking lot that Dad had always promised to repair next quarter. But everything else was about to change. I parked in the visitor's spot, though by rights, I could have taken the CEO's space. The acquisition paperwork had been filed first thing that morning, making me the official owner of Carter Manufacturing. Still, I knew better than to push too hard, too fast. Change requires patience. Security guard Walt did a double take as I walked through the front doors. "Miss Emma, is that really you?" "It's good to see you, Walt," I smiled, remembering how he used to slip me candy when I visit Dad at work as a kid. "How's Sarah doing in college?" His face lit up. "She's graduating next month. Can't believe my little girl's going to be a nurse." "That's wonderful," I said, making a mental note to ensure the company's new healthcare plan would be comprehensive enough for all employees' families. "I'm heading up to the main office. There's going to be a company-wide meeting at 9 a.m. As I walked through the factory floor, I could feel the tension in the air. News of last night's revelations had spread quickly. Workers glanced at me nervously, then quickly looked away. These people had mortgages, children in school, retirement plans tied to the company's success. They needed reassurance. The executive floor was eerily quiet. Dad's office, my office now, stood empty. Kevin's door was closed, but I could hear him talking loudly on the phone. I wasn't surprised he'd shown up. My brother had always been predictably unpredictable. Martha, Dad's longtime secretary, stood as I approached. "Miss Carter," she said formally, though she'd known me since I was in pigtails. "Your brother is expecting you." "I'm sure he is," I replied, "but first I need you to send out an immediate notice. All employees are to gather in the main conference room at 9 a.m. Attendance is mandatory." She nodded, reaching for the phone. I could see the worry in her eyes. "Martha," I added softly, "your job is safe. In fact, I'm going to need your help more than ever." The relief on her face was immediate. "Thank you, Ms. Carter. I never knew about the financial irregularities. Your father never let me handle those records." "I know," I'd assured her, "and please call me Emma." Kevin's door burst open. "Well, if it isn't the prodigal daughter come to claim her throne," he sneered, walking toward me. His tie was loose, his eyes bloodshot. He'd clearly been up all night. "Good morning, Kevin," I said calmly. "I trust you've seen the acquisition paperwork." He laughed bitterly. "Oh yes, I've seen how you've stolen my birthright. Dad might have signed, but I'm contesting it. You can't just walk in here and take everything." "Actually, I can," I said, pulling out my phone and showing him the email from our corporate lawyers. "The sale is legal and binding. Your position as vice president is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out after you've cleared your office." His face reddened. "You can't do this to me. I built this company." "No," I corrected him, "you helped run it into the ground. The only reason you're not facing criminal charges is because I chose not to press them. Don't make me reconsider that decision." He stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his height. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? The honest daughter, the moral compass. But I know things about your precious tech company that would interest the SEC." I smiled. "No, you don't, because unlike Carter Manufacturing, New Age Tech Solutions has nothing to hide. Now please clear out your office. You have 1 hour." As he stormed back into his office, slamming the door, I turned to Martha. "Call security, please. Have them stand by." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. I reviewed the most urgent documents, signed necessary paperwork, and prepared for the company meeting. At 8:55, I headed to the main conference room. It was packed. Every employee, from factory workers to middle management, had squeezed in. The tension was palpable. These people had just learned that their company was not only bankrupt but had been engaged in fraudulent practices for years. Their futures hung in the balance. I took my place at the front of the room, waiting as the last few people filtered in. Kevin wasn't among them. He'd left the building 20 minutes ago, escorted by security carrying a box of his belongings. "Good morning," I began, my voice clear and steady. "My name is Emma Carter. Some of you know me from when I worked here as financial director. Others may only know me as James Carter's daughter or from the events at last night's retirement party. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I held up my hand for silence. I know you're all worried about your jobs, your futures, and the stability of this company. You have every right to be. The actions of the previous management have left Carter Manufacturing in a precarious position. But I'm here to tell you that's going to change. I clicked through to the first slide of my presentation, showing the company's real financial position. This is where we are now. The situation is serious, but not irreparable. New H Tech Solutions has acquired Carter Manufacturing, and we're going to implement immediate changes to ensure its survival and growth. For the next 30 minutes, I outlined my plan: modernization of the production line, implementation of new quality control measures, a complete overhaul of the accounting system, investment in employee training and development, better healthcare benefits, and profit sharing. There will be challenges, I admitted. We'll need to work harder than ever to rebuild our reputation and regain our clients' trust. But I believe in this company, and more importantly, I believe in its people. I could see hope beginning to replace fear on their faces. These were good people who had been let down by bad leadership. They deserved better. I know many of you are angry about the deceptions you've discovered. You trusted the previous management, and that trust was betrayed. I understand that feeling better than anyone. But now we have a choice. We can let that anger consume us, or we can channel it into building something better. After the meeting, I spent hours talking with department heads, answering questions, addressing concerns. By late afternoon, I was exhausted but satisfied. The first steps had been taken. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Need to talk. Dinner at the house. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let him stew in the consequences of his actions. But another part remembered Mom's words. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past. It's about choosing to build a better future. 7 p.m., I texted back. The day wasn't over yet. There were still mountains of paperwork to handle, decisions to make, futures to secure. But as I looked out over the factory floor from my new office window, I felt a surge of determination. This was just the beginning. The hard work of transformation lay ahead. But for the first time in years, Carter Manufacturing had a chance at a legitimate future, and I was going to make sure we seized that chance. Martha knocked on my door. Emma, the union representatives are here for their meeting. I straightened my jacket and turned from the window. Time to keep building, one meeting at a time. Send them in, I said. And Martha? Order dinner for everyone working late tonight. I have a feeling it's going to be a long evening. She smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her all day. Already done, Emma, already done. The sun was setting over the factory, casting long shadows across the floor. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, we were moving in the right direction. Sometimes, the hardest part of fixing something isn't the repair itself. It's having the courage to start. 2 months after taking over Carter Manufacturing, I sat in my office reviewing the first quarter's financial reports. The numbers weren't pretty, but they were honest. And that was a start. The late-night calls, endless meetings, and constant firefighting were beginning to show results, even if they were small. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. Come in, I called, expecting Martha with the afternoon reports. Instead, Kevin walked in. I immediately reached for the security button under my desk, but he held up his hands. Wait, Emma, I'm not here to cause trouble. I need your help. He looked terrible. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled. His expensive suit replaced by worn jeans and a wrinkled shirt. The past 2 months hadn't been kind to him. You have 5 minutes, I said, keeping my hand near the security button. Make them count. He sank into the chair across from my desk. The SEC is investigating me personally. They're looking into some private investments I made with company money. You mean the money you and Dad embezzled? I corrected him. He flinched. Yes, that. They've frozen my accounts. Clara took the kids and left. I'm staying at a motel. He ran his hands through his unkempt hair. I know I don't deserve your help, but you're my sister. I studied him carefully. The arrogant brother who threatened me 2 months ago was gone, replaced by a desperate man facing the consequences of his actions. Part of me wanted to throw him out, to let him face those consequences alone. But another part remembered the brother who taught me to ride a bike, who defended me from bullies in middle school. What exactly are you asking for, Kevin? Legal help, he said quickly. Your lawyers are the best. If they could just look at my case, maybe negotiate with the SEC. I leaned back in my chair. And what would you do if I helped you? Go back to your old ways? Start another scheme? No. He leaned forward earnestly. Emma, these past 2 months, watching you turn the company around, seeing how the employees respect you, I was wrong. About everything. I see that now. It's not just about being wrong, Kevin. It's about the choices you made, the people you hurt, those assembly line workers you cheated out of their bonuses. They have families, kids in college, medical bills. He looked down at his hands. I know, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, about how Mom would be ashamed of what we did. The mention of Mom hit hard. She'd always believed in second chances, in redemption. But she'd also believed in earning that redemption. Here's what I'm willing to offer, I said after a long moment. I'll have our legal team look at your case, but with conditions. His head snapped up. Anything. First, you come clean about everything. Every scheme, every hidden account, every fake invoice. Our lawyers need the complete picture to help you. He nodded quickly. Done. Second, you agree to make restitution to the employees you cheated. It might take years, but you'll pay back every penny. He swallowed hard, but nodded again. And third, I continued, you agree to work for the company again, starting at the bottom. What? He looked confused. Factory floor, Kevin. 6 months of assembly line work at minimum wage. If you want to understand the value of honest work and the people you hurt, that's where you'll learn it. He stared at me for a long moment. The old Kevin would have stormed out, insulted by the suggestion. But this Kevin, humbled by consequences, simply asked, when do I start? Monday, 6 a.m. sharp. You'll work under Marcus in Assembly Section B. He knows what you did, and he won't go easy on you. Kevin stood, straightening his wrinkled shirt. Thank you, Emma. I know I don't deserve this chance. No, you don't. I agreed. Don't waste it. After he left, I sat thinking about redemption and second chances. The company's transformation was going well. We'd implemented new accounting systems, modernized production processes, and started rebuilding client relationships. But the human element, the healing of broken trust, would take much longer. My phone buzzed, a text from Dad. Heard about Kevin. Thank you. I hadn't spoken to him since that dinner after taking over the company. He tried to justify his actions, to explain away years of fraud as necessary business decisions. I'd left before dessert, making it clear that our relationship would be strictly professional from then on. But now, looking at his text, I wondered if people really could change, if redemption was possible not just for Kevin, but for him too. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. Come in, I called. Martha entered with a stack of papers. The latest production reports, Emma, and if something else you should see. She handed me a letter. It was from Marcus, our assembly line supervisor. As I read it, my eyes widened. The workers want to what? Form a committee, Martha said, to propose improvements to the production process. They say they've had ideas for years, but were afraid to speak up under the old management. I smiled. This was exactly what I'd hoped for, employees feeling empowered to contribute, to take ownership of their work. Set up a meeting for tomorrow. I want to hear every idea they have. After Martha left, I walked to the window overlooking the factory floor. The afternoon shift was in full swing, machines humming, workers moving with purpose. In 2 months, we'd gone from a company built on lies to one building a foundation of truth and trust. Monday morning would bring new challenges, including my brother's first day as an assembly line worker. Some would say I was foolish to give him another chance, to risk the progress we made. Maybe they were right. But as I watched the sun setting over the factory, I thought about Mom again. She always said that the true measure of a person isn't in their mistakes, but in how they choose to fix them. Kevin would have to earn his redemption. Dad would have to prove he could change, and I would have to learn to balance justice with mercy, accountability with forgiveness. The company's transformation wasn't just about fixing broken systems, it was about healing broken people. And sometimes that meant giving second chances to those who least deserved them. I picked up my phone and typed a reply to Dad. Family dinner. Sunday at 7. We need to talk. It was time to start building bridges, even as we held firm to our principles. After all, that's what Mom would have done. 6 months after my hostile takeover of Carter Manufacturing, I stood in the company auditorium preparing to address the entire workforce. The room was packed, but unlike that first tense meeting, the atmosphere was different. There was hope in the air, pride even. Kevin stood at the back, still in his blue assembly line uniform. He'd worked every day without complaint, learned every process, and earned the respect of his coworkers through humility and hard work. The charges against him had been reduced thanks to our lawyers and his full cooperation, and tomorrow would be his last day on the factory floor. Dad sat in the front row, looking older but somehow lighter. Our Sunday dinners had become a weekly tradition, sometimes awkward, sometimes tense, but always honest. He'd been working as a consultant, helping us reconnect with old clients who had left during the troubled years. His knowledge was valuable, but more importantly, he was making amends in his own way. "Good morning, everyone," I began, stepping up to the podium. 6 months ago, we started a journey together, a journey to transform not just our company, but ourselves. I clicked to the first slide, showing our latest financial reports. Gasps of surprise echoed through the room. For the first time in 5 years, Carter Manufacturing is showing a real profit. Not inflated numbers, not creative accounting, genuine profit, born of honest work and innovation. Applause broke out. I waited for it to die down before continuing. The Employee Improvement Committee has implemented 17 major changes to our production process, resulting in a 30% increase in efficiency. Our quality control standards are now among the highest in the industry, and most importantly, every single employee now has a stake in our success through our profit-sharing program. More applause. I saw Marcus, the assembly line supervisor, nodding proudly. His team had been instrumental in the changes. But today's meeting isn't just about celebrating our financial success. It's about recognizing our human success. I gestured to Kevin, who looked surprised as all heads turned toward him. 6 months ago, my brother agreed to work on the assembly line as part of his redemption. Today is his last day there. Tomorrow, he starts his new role as quality control supervisor, a position he earned through hard work and humility. Kevin's eyes were wet as his former coworkers applauded. He told me last week that these 6 months had taught him more about business, people, and himself than his entire previous career. And there's one more announcement, I continued. As many of you know, my father has been working as a consultant, helping us rebuild relationships with former clients. Today, I'm pleased to announce that every single major client we lost has returned to Carter Manufacturing. Dad sat straighter in his chair as people turned to look at him. He'd spent months making personal apologies, rebuilding trust one conversation at a time. "We're not just a company that makes auto parts," I said, my voice growing passionate. "We're a family, not just the Carter family, but all of us. And like any family, we've had our struggles, our disappointments, our betrayals. But also like a family, we found the strength to forgive, to rebuild, to become better than we were." I looked around the room, meeting the eyes of people I'd come to know and respect over these months. Tomorrow we start a new chapter. Carter Manufacturing is merging with New Age Tech Solutions, creating Carter New Age Industries. We'll be expanding our production lines, hiring more workers, and implementing even more advanced technology. But we'll never forget the lessons we've learned about honesty, integrity, and the power of second chances. The applause was thunderous. As people began to file out, heading back to their workstations, Dad and Kevin approached the podium. "Proud of you, Emma," Dad said softly. "Your mother would be too." Kevin nodded. "You saved more than just the company, sis. You saved us." I looked at these two men, not the perfect father and brother I'd wanted as a child, but real, flawed humans who'd found the courage to change. "We saved ourselves," I corrected him. "All of us together." As I watched them walk away, I thought about that night I'd shown up uninvited to Dad's retirement party, ready to expose years of lies. I thought I was there to destroy something, but instead, I started building something better. Sometimes the hardest battles we fight aren't against others, but against our own anger, our own hurt, our own reluctance to forgive. But as I've learned, true strength isn't in holding on to past wrongs, it's in building a better future, one honest day at a time. The factory hummed with activity below, a sound that now represented not just productivity, but redemption. We transformed more than just a company, we transformed ourselves.